In roller derby, holding space is an empowering and often intimidating act of strength and strategy for oneself and or teammates. Holding Space, the podcast, clears the floor for conversations that touch upon race, class, identity, and privilege to amplify stories, build community, and make more human connections in the skate world. Expect lots of smart, dope skate people musing about life on and off 8 wheels and silliness. Can't forget the silliness that you never knew you needed and won't be able to live without. Welcome to Holding Space with Magical Wheelism. So, shall we get started? I want to pivot over to my conversation with Skate Wytch, Courtney Shove, and Sam of Mixed Hues about Roll Call, a skate weekend, a skate event that happened over a weekend in early August in Richmond, Virginia, which convened skaters of color throughout the country for dialogue and expert-led classes and lots of other things. And I want to issue an apology. I am still learning the technical aspect of podcasting, and unfortunately I was unable to salvage about half of the audio from this interview. I was trying a platform and the technology powers that be weren't having it with us and our internet connections. So it's a little bit of a challenge, and I appreciate also Skate Wytch's, Shove's, and Sam's patience through all of the travails. The interview began by folks introducing themselves and their involvement in skating and where they're from. Like by a little later on, you'll hear more from Sam of Mixed Hues, who's a Austin-based artist and a former derby skater, and now street skater. If you are interested in checking out her work for yourself, she's at mixedhues.com on social media and the internets.
My name is Kathleen or Skate Wytch. I have been skating for 7 years, 5 years in parks. I am currently one of the admins for Chicks and Bowls, Virginia, which is also where I live, specifically in Richmond. Like I said, I've been doing parks for 5 years, and I guess founded Virginia chapter. They're just kind of starting out. I saw videos coming to New Zealand with Lady Trample, and we had just kind of started to see videos pop up here and there, and I was still a fresh meat in derby and just kind of wanted to be on skates more, identifying skaters out into the parks and providing empowerment that way. And now what I do is I'm starting to travel and coach, but I also try to tie what I do in skating to community outreach, whether that is through canned food drives, park cleanups, and things like that.
So I'm Courtney Shove. Everyone calls me Shove, and I am on Instagram as Fat Girl Has Moxie. Well, originally I just started it as I'm going to try to skate for every day for a year, and I also want to just show that, like, fat girls can. So I was like, it's going to be a body positive. Also, like, look, I'm active and I am fat, but I am, like, you can't correlate one with the other, like saying that fat is unhealthy and lazy. And it's kind of like a way to show people that the opposite, there's more to being plus size, that you have all these options, and that, like, you can roller skate, which is a passion of mine. And I didn't see too many other girls my size, or even men my size, or non-binary people out there really, like, showing people, like, you can do this too. So I started that, and I started realizing a lot of other plus size people were messaging me and being like, oh my gosh, I want to skate, or I have skates and I'm afraid to skate in public. I don't leave derby because, like, even in derby, I feel like everyone's judging me for my size. So my platform now is fat, black, and queer roller skating diva. So that's my whole premise. So I mostly strive just to inspire other people of any size, shape, color, whatever your sexuality is, to just go out there and be honest and be your true self, and just kind of, like, encourage other people to live the best life they can. And that's pretty much my goal. I try to just, like, help other people I see struggling. Whenever I hear someone putting themselves down, it's like uplifting them and empowering them, and just like giving the whole, like, look, if I can do it, you can do it too. And I just think representation is so important.
Dope. So, Skate Wytch, would you give us a little bit of the backstory about how Roll Call came to be, how long it took to organize, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so Call kind of started out of frustration with myself. There was an event that I've been invited to the past 3 summers, and another local skater who's a friend of mine who's also POC, out and was like, hey, how do I get invited to this event? And at the time, I remember it's not really up to me, maybe next year, like that. And I just remember after the fact feeling so bad about not including her in this first off. But then I started to realize that this is the third year I've done this, and I have been the only person of color that's been going, not only as a skater, but kind of in the crowd as well. There's really not that many POCs people that attend the event, and it's a really big, it's not, I guess not a really big, but it's a growing event for the East Coast. And it just was really frustrating to me that I wasn't doing more to like help this friend of mine and like, you know, wanted to give back. And I was feeling really inspired by Neon, who runs the BIPOC Who's Skate page, and she was doing a lot of this like kind of like celebrating other skaters of color and giving them like a platform where they could speak up about their background and things that they were dealing with in the skating community. And so I just kind of contacted her and was like, hey, I think I want to like put on this event where, you know, we bring together different like skaters of color, and also we would be like just kind of celebrating each other, maybe discussing some things, because this is also right around the time ECDX was happening. And we all know about the issue that happens every year where refs will tend to call out skaters based on their skin tone and not like on their color. And it was just a lot of frustrations were kind of bubbling up, and I didn't like the fact that whenever I looked on social media, I wasn't seeing that many skaters of color represented. I was feeling very like, you know, I have all these people that I follow back, and most of them are white, and I'm not sure if that's just what I'm seeing through like ads or if it's because that's just Instagram working its magic or what the deal was. But I just knew that there were a ton of skaters around me that I may have not met yet, or that may have felt the same way and just kind of wanted to give us an opportunity to get together. So then I reached out to not only Neon, who was on board, but also Kiana Uwana and Cuban Missile, and they both were really excited about the event, and it just kind of took off from there. We kind of started planning in April, I think, and then by May we were like, all right, we're gonna sign this up, and thankfully I have like a place where we can have people over to skate, and it just kind of took off. And then over the course of 3 months we just kind of wung it, and thankfully, because I have a space of my own that we can skate at, I didn't have to like put too many stipulations or insurance policies or anything like that. And it was just like, hey, people come by, we're gonna have some coaches, we're gonna have a pool party and just hang out and talk, and it just kind of took off from there. We set a price for the week, which I felt was like $65. I feel like very cheap for like a camp scenario. So it wasn't too outrageously expensive to come out unless you were traveling. And then I kind of factored in advance how much we would have to sell in order to give a certain range, and knew that if we did not sell so many tickets that we were able to host the event, and kind of set up by this day, we're just gonna, you know, cut our losses, donate everybody's money back, you know, go from there. But thankfully, in like the second day, we were already halfway sold out.
The first ever edition of Roll Call ended up selling out, and organizers and attendees ended up raising over $1,500 for Virginia-based organization Girls for a Change.
They are actually specifically out of Richmond, Virginia. I do think they have another location somewhat based out of California, but basically what they do is they get specifically African-American girls into after-school programs that focus on leadership skills and science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and also the arts, because that's been added on to that as well. They do things like gardening and take the girls to museums and give them entrepreneurship skills and things like that.
So I remember when it first was advertised, like scrolling through Instagram, and someone had mentioned this when we were having our discussion at the event. And it was like, you see a flyer, and it was like a black girl on a floaty in a pool, and you're like, wait, what's this? This never happens. like I identify with this. Then looking, and I'm like, oh my God, where is this? Yeah, I was like, where? I gotta go to this. And I was like, wait, Virginia? I'm like, and it's right after RollerCon, I'm gonna be so broke. I can't do that. I was like, there's no way. So I was like, okay, I'll share it so that other people can see it. But I was like, oh well. I was like, so I kind of like lost track, but like I would see Kiana always talking about it, and I was like, man, I'm like getting FOMO, and it's not even happening yet. And then at RollerCon, Estrogen from Moxie Roller Skates was like talking to me about it, and it just was like the little tidbits, and I was like, okay, didn't really know. And they're like, yeah, you gotta talk to Skate Wytch, like. So I talked to Skate Wytch, and she was like, yeah, roll call, want to spread the message, and like it needs to be something on West Coast, like it'd be great, like it would be great if you could get there. I've talked to other people, and they were like, maybe they could all come together. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know, that seems very last minute. I definitely don't have money for that right now, but we'll see. So go home from RollerCon, and all of a sudden I'm like hanging out, and Estrogen messaged me, and she was like, hey, me and Dita are going. Estro was like, me and Dita are going to Roll Call. Will you come with us? we will take care of everything for you. Just go. I want you to experience this. I want you to take what you learn here and be able to spread it back to Long Beach, West Coast, like on the internet. Like, we need to get this word out. And I was like, well, yes, I'm not going to say no. That sounds amazing. Like, this is an opportunity I would love to have. And at first I was like hesitant because I was like, okay, I don't want to be like the black girl they brought to roll call to represent for like Moxie, because I like had no affiliation with them. But then at the same time, I was like, even if it is, I need to go so I can also find out more. So I'm like, not even going to think about that. This is like an opportunity. And I got to know them better, like realized they wanted to go from a good place. And then just being able to like, Sam, love her, know her already, met her. Also like Skate Wytch, getting to know her better, and her coaching style was great. And I feel like connecting with other skaters of color, it was like, I never get to experience that really. In Long Beach, there's a lot of like Latinx people, but I'm always the only black skater. Like, whether it was like in Derby or like I'm at parks or in the streets, like I don't see too many other black people skating. So it was like very beautiful, and just like being able to like unleash like so much. And I was like so glad that I got to go, because like when I first saw that flyer, I was like, I'll never make it. And I did, and I'm so glad I did.
You know, funny you should mention like you representing your region and the West Coast, because my next question was actually leading up to that, seeing as how you all on this call represent different regions. Skate Wytch, you're in Virginia, Shove, you're in California, Sam's in Austin, and I'm here in NYC. I was wondering if there were any sort of specific similarities or differences that emerged in the discussions you had about what you're noticing at your respective, you know, skate parks at home or derby leagues.
So it was different regions for sure. But not only that, but there was also, I think, a small thing that were specifically just jam skaters, people that were only in parks now and may have retired from derby, or they had never played derby. We had some people that had just seen the event online and then came to my house for the first time. And that was really cool, because I was like, oh, where are you from? And they're just like, oh, I've lived here my entire life, and had never met them before. But that was kind of for me too. What Shove was touching is just that there were conversations that happened, maybe not necessarily at point, but off to the side, that I had never been able to have with anybody else, just as a player. Well, I am biracial, I should say, but my stepdad and mom are both white. I touched on this a little in the discussion point, where fortunately we have a religious background and it's not the best environment, and it's gotten worse, obviously. And so there were regions I was able to have with other OC skaters that I've friends, just because most of my friends are white, little like microaggressions or straight up just racist acts that had happened from my own family members or in the community around me that I was able to discuss with other skaters. And it just was so refreshing to just feel like, oh, I'm not by myself and I'm not crazy. This is a normal thing, and this is definitely not okay the way I've been spoken to, and things like that. And then just to hear the stories from people from just all these different areas, and some of them were like, yes, I can absolutely relate to that, and this is how I've dealt with it. And then some for them to be like, well, actually, this has been the opposite scale, and this is how I've been dealing with it. And to just know that skating is like our common connection, and that we can come together on that. And for me, skating has also, I think, given me my real family, as far as like through my friends in the derby community and in the park community. And it was a very heavy and like raw experience for me personally through that. Yeah, so talking about call to action, especially with like Kiana's posts and stuff, something that me and her and also Neon and Cuban had talked about is that it's important to me that even though Roll Call was an event that, you know, I had thought up with them and, you know, we put on together, I think it's important to not take ownership over it, because the idea is that we want other people in cities or countries, wherever, to feel empowered and want to do this themselves. I think that there's a lot of really good things that come from change and just trying to get people to work together on things, and using skating as that like platform to like bring us all together and then speak up is more important than us like just arguing through a screen about things. So I know for the East Coast, we're very spread out and it's really hard to get us all together. So when we were able to have Roll Call, it brought us together. And again, we got to meet people that we'd never seen before. So the idea is that if, you know, I'm one person that had this, ideally had a team of great coaches and skaters that wanted to support it. But I would like to think that anyone could do this simply by being like, hey, I want to host a small get together. It doesn't even have to be necessarily an event like this. It could just be a rollout. I know Kiana is trying to put on one right now where they're going to just do a short rollout down some area in San Diego. And then they're going to have like an open discussion at some point and kind of touch on things that we talked about at Roll Call. We just mainly want the conversation to keep going. That's the biggest thing, is we want this to not just be a blip on the screen. I know some people are interested in having this happen yearly, and I'd love to see that happen, but I'd also just love to to see people take notice. And thankfully with like things like this podcast, you know, people are reaching out more. But again, it's roller skating, and unfortunately things trend, and this could burn out really quickly. And I don't want to see that happen. I want people to be aware that we're really tired of, like, I don't want to say being shut out, but just, you know, being underrepresented. I am a big fan of, you know, Chicks and Bowls and Moxie and other brands, but I'm seeing more and more of these little skate groups pop up. And I think it's because, you know, they're finding that there isn't enough representation for us out there, and that, you know, they're just like, well, we're going to do our own thing, and we're going to make sure that it includes people like us. And that's not to put anyone down that doesn't identify as the same thing, whether it's, you know, POC or queer or whatever. It's just more that, you know, we want to feel safe and we want to feel connected, and we want to know that we're not so much in the minority, because I don't think that's the case at all. Roller skating is super tied to both African American and Latinx culture, and yet again, my screen just tends to be mainly, you know, cis white people, and it's just something that I'd like to see change. And I think giving people a reason to speak out and like kind of talk to each other, and, you know, having more allies on our side, that's really important right now.
For me, I felt like we all had something in common. We all loved to skate. Like, we all had the same experiences through walking through life, and all our experiences were like almost flatlined. It didn't really matter where we came from. It was just like, we're in geography, it was different, but it was like every experience was like, I relate to that person, and they're from Boston, or to this person, they're from Richmond, this person from Texas, same experience. I feel I am lucky where like the racism might not be as blatant in a lot of times, but it's still here. And I feel like people are a little more it's a little more casual little digs, and then it's depending on where I am, it'll be blatant. But some people definitely, I realized, like, had blatant racism in their areas, and that was the main like thing I noticed that was different.
So what's the response been like since the event ended? What were your takeaways, and what have you noticed throughout the community in terms of any responses to the themes that were discussed at roll call?
Yeah, I actually immediately got like a really upsetting message after roll call, and it was really frustrating. I posted that story about how I didn't realize that the Charlottesville riots were like the 2-year anniversary, like the day after roll call was over and stuff. And someone commented, and even though it wasn't about roll call, they were just like, what does this have to do with roller skating? I don't understand why you're putting this on your story. And then try to tell me they didn't know anything about it. And I didn't know how to respond to that, because I was like, do you not watch the news? And also, like, it was a post that, it was from Sean King, so, like, they were just like, oh, well, where's their evidence? And I'm like, there's literally a video of all this happening, and it was insanely frustrating. And then I found out from Kiana that they had, like, gotten messages from this same skater in the past that had also sent, like, weird microaggression things, and then apparently Neon had as well through the BIPOC page. I was just like, and this was also someone that had been, like, following me for a long time, so I didn't really know how to not be an asshole, but also was, like, very prepared to be an asshole and be like, why are you even asking me these questions? So, but that's been the only truly negative thing that I've received out of it, and that's not completely connected to all, but it's just, yeah, it's more aggravating because it's like, oh, I already know that people like you exist, but to know that you exist in our skate community and that you find yourself super involved somehow and things like that, it was just like, it was disappointing. Yeah. And I just couldn't tell if it was, like, just pure ignorance or if it was maybe some, like, underlying weird white nationalism type stuff. Because that's definitely how it rubbed me. So it just, like, as soon as, like, I told Kiana about it, she was just like, oh my gosh, like, yeah.
My biggest takeaway was using my online presence through Instagram to be able to, like, make sure I'm randomly keep the conversation going. So, like, I didn't want to go heavy with it. So it's like dropping things here and there because I want to space it out. Right now I was even talking to my girlfriend who's starting YouTube, and we want to, like, she was like, how can I as an ally get that conversation going? And I was like, yeah, like, we're like brainstorming, like, how can we use, like, get multiple people with different kinds of social media platforms to keep this going so that it is an ongoing conversation. So, like, I'm excited for things that we plan on doing and she plans on doing. For me, like, for step one was kind of like, I would sit back, I like to observe things. So I was like noticing that a lot of the allies that did post things, it was a lot of, I learned how to do this. This is the new trick I learned. And I was like, that didn't sit right with me, because I was like, this wasn't Moxie Camp. This wasn't a Chicks and Bowls meetup. This was to learn something important, and you guys were to come and listen and like take something away. Like, tell me what you learned from this experience. Did you even mention like, oh yeah, people of color were there too? Like, oh, that was like a side note for them. And it was like, no, like bring that, like call out your fellow friends.
My next question is, what is your vision for the skate community at large? What is the change that you would like to see come into fruition?
Personally, in my free time, try to really talk about why I think it's important for skaters to make sure they're giving back to their community. I think not necessarily with roller skaters, but with skateboarders, there's a really negative stigma on skating culture. And I think we've already empowered ourselves. It's for us right now. We're on a good roll, not to be punny or anything like that. But I would like to see us be more involved with not just the wheels under our feet, but also like giving back to those in need. So again, with just canned food drives, park cleanups, whether it's helping create new skate parks and build, going to city council meetings and things like that. That is the future I want to see more from the roller skaters. Roller skating community is just like that drive to make sure it's a long lasting effect and it's not just a blip on the screen and a trend, like that's kind of what we're fighting against right now, is making sure that, POC skaters aren't seen as like tokenized or anything like that, that we're like here to stay. And we want to lift it up and brought together, and we don't want to necessarily just like, fade out. And I think part of that comes with giving back to others and being like making kind of a stand for ourselves within the community, and not just politically, but also just like by reaching out and helping those in need.
How about you, Sam?
What do you think? I would love, that's kind of a two-part question for me, since even though I'm retired derby, I still am a part of the community a lot because of my art and my business. And first part for derby, I would love to see the powers that be that run with the USARs, whatever large body organizations, start to really hone in on marginalized, underserved people in this sport. They just rolled out the new rule set, or not rule set, but how to handle Black skaters or any skaters being called by their skin colors instead of their jersey colors. And just this week in our group, you've seen that hasn't really taken hold, even though this is an old issue. WIFTA has to figure out a way to rein those referees, NSOs, whoever in, and figure out how they are actively going to handle the situation. I would like to see within the coming year them actually put those words to action and hold people accountable for how they hurt Black skaters and people of color in this sport on a daily basis. And this stuff is happening on tournament level, level A skaters. And it's ridiculous. Not that your level matters, but that it's happening on such a grand stage and they're still fucking up. It makes it even more notable as to what that problem is. Imagine a skater in Oklahoma who's the only Black skater or only person of color in their whole league, what they have to go through. If it's happening to somebody like Freight Train, Poison Violet, any of the big names that skate in derby, WIFTA and really needs to rein in how they deal with racial issues. That would be a benchmark for them to finally start to not only realize what's going on within the leagues, to actually do something about it. As far as like the park skating part, I'm new to it. I would love to, I don't know if that'll ever happen, but have more open dialogue and cross-platforming with boarders, like the BMXers, the boarders at the park, for them not to view us as invaders in their space. It doesn't happen everywhere. Some people are real mellow. Some parks are mellow here. But some parks you go into and it's not, you can tell right off that they don't want you there. And I would love to be able to bring them into something like a roll call, because I feel that part of our skate community can benefit from hearing our stories and hear our experiences if they're even open to sharing theirs or hearing ours. I don't want to go, I would love the skate park to be a little bit more universal, because we all just want to skate or ride bikes or whatever your apparatus is. We all want to be there and have fun. And the park shouldn't be a point of contention for people that are new trying to go to the park to learn and just have fun. That would be the second part that I would want to reach out to that part of the communities.
I'm a firm believer in no consequences lead to no conscience. And I feel like that's what I would hope to see in the future after roll call, is that there's more of us having consequences towards skate teams and derby when it comes to WIFTA and just companies about the behavior they're having and that's trending, that we're not having that representation. So when we see something, actually speaking out about it and making changes. And then if it is like hurting them in the pockets or doing things like that, that's what I'm hoping to see, that correlates into actual change.
With that being said, something I was thinking about too, because while we were having like technical issues, Shove and I were kind of talking about something that had happened right after roll call. So my thing with roller skating is like, for me, it's very much my reality because it's what I do with all of my free time that I can. I want it to be ingrained in every part of my life. But for most people, I hear the phrase that roller skating is their escape and it's how they kind of disconnect with reality. But the thing with that is that the issues we talked about at roll call, that is a reality. They don't go away when we start skating. We have to possibly deal with them in skating. And that's the thing is like I think roll call was a great way to be like, hey, this matters and it's something ongoing with us and we feel marginalized and we want you to know that we're here and we're present. We want you to stand with us, not just in roller skating. That's the thing is like, it's very important that people understand that, yes, we're talking about issues in roller skating, but like this stuff is happening every day, things we've been dealing with all our lives, and that it's not going to simply go away by us just having these events. We really do have to like, again, put our focus on what can we do in the here and now and how can we stand up for each other and make sure that we're all treating each other with the way we want to be treated and not letting people take advantage of our situations.
I'm a firm believer in no consequences lead to no conscience. And I feel like that's what I would hope to see in the future after roll call is that there's more of us having consequences towards skate teams and Derby when it comes to WIFTA and just companies about the behavior they're having and that's trending, that's not that we're not having that representation. So when we see something, actually speaking out about it and making changes, and then if it is like hurting them in the pockets or doing things like that, that's what I'm hoping to see that correlates into actual change.
Okay, so we're hitting the final stretch here. My last few questions are reoccurring questions that I'm going to ask everyone who I interview on these podcasts. What is your favorite self-care tip and what is your favorite care tip? Care is my way of saying what is the issue, the cause, the organization that you would like people to really think about and know about.
For self-care, I am mostly an introvert, so it's really draining whenever I'm around other people, and I'm really good at faking it, but then I'll just slowly start melting down. So for me, it's like finding a very peaceful, quiet spot. Like I might skate there, I'll drive there, walk there, and just sitting wherever it's like alone with nature, whether it be the beach or just finding a nice tree in a park and sitting under it and just having complete silence. And that's my self-care. When it comes to care, I would say I'm more of like, anytime I'm just like big on people that don't take care of themselves. So whenever I see someone putting themselves down, things like that, I always say like I'm everyone's auntie that they can come talk to. So like I'll jump in and I like to just really make sure that I'm just preaching to them about that they should look into their self-care or like building people up. So I'm always like linking people with like other like companies that they can like have more representation to make them feel more at home and find the things they need that do sell plus size clothing and things like that. So I'm more of like that person that's a provider. Like I like to listen to people and things like that. And that's pretty much all I do.
I work a lot, so I'm going to sit myself down and stop and recharge and just taking time to do something that makes you happy, like draw for all of us. So I draw. I watch true crime and horror movie every day. So that's my self-care. That's a bit, but it's my self-care. Care is helping people, same thing. For what I do, to let other color. If you don't see what you want to see in whatever passion that you can that outlet for yourself. So I like imparting whatever knowledge I have, what I have on people. I just know that I'm pretty processes, their business practices. I'm pretty open about that with people. It's no your skate business that caters to color, merch, things that showcase. And that's kind of part excuse because I didn't see what I wanted to see.
I see a lot of people doing the Skate Daily stuff. And as someone that deals with mental health issues, it's really important to not get swept up in those moments yourself and not necessarily keep up with everybody else to have. So that being said, my care is actually, I guess, a shout out to people that are doing a lot of work in the community right now. One of those is obviously going to be Neon, who's running the page. So not only, again, highlight color, but selling patches and stickers for, I believe it's called Races Texas. It's RAICES Texas. And those donations help families that are trying to get these right now. So that there's a lot more on what you can find at IPOC Who's Skate page. So that I want to shout out to is both San Jose Park cleaner session, but trash and things like that. And I know recently she just got like a huge grant to help their skate parks in their area. And to me, that is just a giant step in the right direction for not only Chicksons, but just also the skate community can be doing give back. And I would rather see it up more and have other people follow that example. So.
Awesome. And Kathleen, why don't you just kick us off and tell us your most valuable player, who can be a person, place, thing, community, org, business, anything, and tell us why.
It's so hard to pick just one. I find that I'm like really involved with I can't sit still, and I just keep picking different organizations to work with. So right now, I guess the MVP, other than BIPOC Skate and what they're doing with their patches of sales, is going to be Feed More, which is a food bank here. They feed 25 different areas and stuff and make a huge difference. And we're going to do an event in Car Fest, which we do every year, where we take in camp just to kind of kick off the holiday season. And also it's way too late after that. So they would be my key person, I guess, organization, just because that's where I'm going to be going once I come back from traveling. So yeah.
Shove, Sam?
I work with a foundation here called the Chula League, and every year they bring professional artists in the community together, and they match us with elementary school kids in our neighborhood. I live on the east side of Austin, which is predominantly Black and brown people, underserved community, and we mentor them for 10 weeks. It's called Little Artists, Big Artists, and we mentor them for 10 weeks, and they get to learn our trade. So whatever they want to make, depending if it's photography, whatever they choose, or whatever our skill is, we get to mentor them. And at the end, they get a big art show to show what they learned during the 10 weeks from the professional artists. So this is going on my third year. I apply for it every year, and I've done it twice, and I'll do it come spring next year. And that's something I really, really love doing. And the program is awesome. And they have an art show every year that raises money for Chula League, so they can keep those kind of programs going in our neighborhood. And I have a second MVP, is my partner, because I wouldn't be able to do a hell of a lot of what I have right now. I wouldn't be able to do it without him schlepping the shows with me and going to games and dealing with my crazy 24/7, because shit's crazy. I wouldn't be able to do mixed use. Their mixed use would be really hard for me to do without the groundwork he put in to help me get started.
I would say for me, when it comes to I would say a group, it would be Queer Skate Alliance. If you go to their page, you'll see that it's all shapes, colors, everyone that's in derby, skates, anything is on there, representation. And I love everything they're doing for the queer community. Just makes me so happy. They're so great and opening. Me and my partner have had different rollouts, and they were first to be we want to give you prizes. How can we support you? And it just felt like they were just right away, very inclusive, and anything you need, or you need just someone to cry to, they respond. They're there, which I love for the queer community. When it comes to one person, it'd be Sam right here, because she was the first person to really tell me that I could do what I wanted with my art. So I went to her to help me make some stickers, and that turned into more opportunities. And anytime I'm I don't know how to price people or any insecurities I have, she was the only person to give me honest answers. And I really respect that. So thank you, Sam. And that's all I have.
Thanks, y'all. And my most valuable player, plural players, are just the team of people who help me run just as a human, just everyone who just keeps me balanced and well and loves me unconditionally. Those are my most valuable players. I feel we aren't anyone without our squad, Anyways, thank you. And you all are awesome. I really appreciate all the work that you all are doing in your individual ways to create community and to use your platforms for others to lift others up. And that's so it warms my heart. You're all inspirational to me. You're all my MVPs too.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, folks, well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Skate Wytch, Courtney Shove, and Sam of Mixed Hues about Roll Call, which sounds like an amazing event. And I want to thank them for their time and for all that they do to uplift the POC skate community. As for holding space, I am Magical Wheelism. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.